Arrowhead and Zurich have teamed up to offer multi-line package coverages at competitive prices. We're bringing new life to ambulance insurance. Learn more at arrowheadgrp.com/ambulance.
Why does it seem easier for society, and in particular government, to respond by spending lots of money after a disaster rather than emphasizing preparedness before one? Julie Rochman, CEO and President of the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety, tackles that question and one about her own organization's budget in this interview with Insurance Journal's Andy Simpson.
I lived in Washington for 25 years. And there's a saying there, I'm sure people say this in state capitals as well, that the public policymaker gets credit for filling the pothole, not for preventing the pothole. It's difficult to take credit for stopping something because proving a negative is very different. So there are members of Congress who really like putting on the slicker and going out with FEMA and handing out checks. And a lot of people will call it the Air Force One solution, where money just sort of rains down on a community after a disaster. And it's very interesting because I think if you polled people who've been through a disaster, without exception, they would say they would have preferred not to go through the displacement, the trauma, the financial challenge, the loss of community ties to get that money. I think people want to stay safe in their homes. They want to feel like their home is a safe place. They want their businesses to remain open. So it is really a mystery, although I think if you look at the healthcare debate, it's very similar. We're very curative-oriented rather than preventative. The challenge now is with budget deficits being the way they are, there's a big conversation going on in Washington and elsewhere about how do we spend disaster relief dollars? Is that really FEMA's role? Is FEMA a preparation and prevention agency, or is it a response and recovery agency? Is NFIP, the National Flood Insurance Program, a prevention organization and a safety net for properties who really have no other choice because they have to be located in a flood-prone area? Or is it just a program that we just pay out money regardless of the types of flood loss prevention steps people have taken? It's a debate that's probably long overdue, and it's going to seem very cruel to a lot of people who have suffered recently. They're going to feel like the rules have changed. But it's a very interesting dynamic because we have to put the pieces back in some places. There are economic imperatives for doing so. But if we're going to invest government dollars, or private sector dollars for that matter, in terms of putting property back in vulnerable areas, shouldn't we invest those dollars in making those properties stronger and safer for the next time? If we don't do that, we've learned nothing, and that would be a real shame. We know from some survey research, some social science that we conducted a few years ago, that insurers are a very trusted source of information about disaster preparation. And so it's terrific when the insurance industry does play a large role in getting people to prepare or respond appropriately to disasters as they make landfall in the case of Sandy. We work very closely with local emergency management officials, state emergency management officials, and obviously FEMA. One of the things that we try to emphasize, and IBHS works in the before disaster as well as after disaster spaces, and one of the things we try to emphasize with our member insurance companies, reinsurers, intermediaries, anybody who will listen, is to be coordinated with the emergency managers. People want to stay in their home. They have sort of an irrational belief that they're going to be able to protect it from a wildfire or protect it from a tornado. And if the emergency managers in your local area are telling you to evacuate, go, run, get out. Have a plan, take copies of your insurance policy. All the things that the insurance industry has said for many years are very true, and we try to be as supportive as we can with last-minute tips that people should do before they leave their property so the property can self-defend a bit, as well as longer-term thinking that we push out information, tips, how-to guides, checklists. We push those out through our members so that they can talk to their policyholders as hurricane season starts, as wildfire season starts, as the tornado, high wind, and hail season starts. We're constantly working to try to arm people with better information and activities, things that they can do that will actually make a difference. Asking me about our budget is a very loaded question, but I will answer it. We lose in this country millions of homes in terms of damage or destruction every year. Just the roofs alone in this country. We replace, as an industry, millions of roofs. We repair millions more. We think if we could just get the roof right in this country, we would save probably half of all property losses. And we're talking about tens of billions of dollars of losses every year. There's just in the hurricane-prone states $10 or $11 trillion of exposure. We are the only only insurance industry organization that is dedicated entirely to property loss prevention and loss control and mitigation. And our budget is just over $8 million. So it's a very small investment. I would love to see a much larger investment by the industry. There are issues that we're tackling, like hail damage, that really nobody else is taking on. We're moving building science forward in amazing ways. We have very ambitious agenda and I think highly executable plans to make things better. And I think 10 years from now, if we're sitting here having the same conversation, the world's going to be a very different and much safer and better place.